I've been married for almost 7 years, and until a few weeks ago, I thought I'd already weathered the greatest trials a marriage could face. Until a neighbor, yes, a neighbor, decided to test my patience, my marriage, and, most importantly, my tolerance threshold. I live in a relatively quiet building, where most people know each other by name, and there's always that friendly elevator atmosphere. Good morning. How are you? How's the family? Nothing too intimate, nothing intrusive. It was like that until the woman from 704 moved in. From the start, she was nice. Too much. That forced friendliness, you know. The kind who smiles all the time, compliments everything you do, and always seems to have a plan behind that smile. At first, I thought it was just her way. And I confess, I tried to get closer, to be welcoming. After all, it doesn't hurt to be nice to a new neighbor. But soon I began to notice a pattern. She was always around. Always at the same time my husband went down to work. Always in the elevator when he returned. And worse, when I was alone, she was distant, almost cold. But as soon as he showed up, she transformed. Big smiles, exaggerated compliments, pats on the arm, giggles out of turn. One time I was waiting for the elevator with him and she appeared. She straightened her hair, looked straight at him, and blurted out, "Wow, so-and-so, you look even better in a dress shirt like that. Where are you going all dressed up?" As if it were normal. As if he were talking to a coworker, and not the neighbor's husband. My husband laughed, visibly embarrassed, and replied that it was just another day at work. I, standing next to him, just forced a smile. Inside, I was already putting the pieces together. At first, I tried to rationalize. I thought, okay, she's like that with everyone. Maybe I'm exaggerating. But no, she wasn't like that with everyone. It was like that with him. I began to notice that when I was on the porch, she always managed to pass by in the hallway, as if she'd forgotten something in the car. When he was in the garage, she'd accidentally come down and strike up a conversation. Once, he told me that she'd stopped him to ask if he knew where to buy a specific wine because she liked drinking alone at night, but hated drinking alone. Seriously. She said this looking him in the eye, alone at night, without company, like someone opening the door and saying, "Come in." And the worst part? Always with that same little smile of, "I'm not doing anything wrong," because that's what these people do. They know exactly how far they can go, right up until the moment they think no one is looking. But I saw it. I saw everything. Little by little, I began to mentally store these situations, like putting together a puzzle. The first piece was the excessive compliments. Then the frequency of coincidences. Then came the looks, the touches, the ulterior motives. And what bothered me most? The way she never included me in conversations when he was around. She ignored me, as if I were the odd one out, as if he were available. And the most bizarre thing? He thought I was exaggerating. Every time I delicately brought up the subject, he'd say, "Honey, you're reading things where they aren't. She's just nice, and a little clueless, maybe." Maybe? At this point, I no longer doubted my intuition. I no longer saw just a polite woman trying to make friends. I saw an opportunist, and worse. A woman who knew he was married, knew me, greeted me, and yet still offered herself as an option. And there, deep down, I already knew. This story was going to explode. And what I didn't imagine was that she would give herself away, unintentionally, and to the entire building. After a while, I could no longer pretend it was just me exaggerating. What once seemed like an excess of friendliness began to turn into blatant provocation. The neighbor from 704 couldn't hide it anymore. And the worst part? She always did it smiling, as if she knew exactly how far she could go without being officially accused of anything. It started happening in very specific places and times. Like, my husband would go out to take out the trash, and out of nowhere, she would appear in the hallway with a grocery bag. Sometimes he would be heading to the building's gym, and she would appear already in workout clothes saying, "Wow, what a coincidence. I really wanted to work out right now." Coincidence? 3 times in 1 week? One day, he went down to pick up a takeout, and she appeared in the elevator with a bottle of wine in her hand and said, If I'd known I'd find you here, I would have brought 2 glasses. Seriously. She said it looking right at him, in the elevator, with the cameras rolling. And he didn't even say hello when I passed by shortly after, and the most revolting thing was the way she acted around me. She treated me with that automatic politeness, as if I were an obstacle, an inconvenient detail. She'd say hi while looking at her phone, pretending she was in a hurry. But as soon as I left the scene, she'd start a conversation with him, laugh loudly, find any excuse to stay, and I started to feel the wear and tear. Because, as much as he said it was just my impression, the truth is he didn't know how to handle it either. That neighbor knew how to play the game. She knew how to flirt without seeming direct. She knew how to give compliments with that light, yet double entendre intonation. And he smiled. He deflected. He didn't respond in kind. But he also never cut me off, and that drove me crazy. Because the line between not responding and supporting is very thin. And every time she made a move, and he just pretended not to see, I felt like it was a small, silent betrayal. Not physical, but emotional. The kind that happens in the realm of omission. I even mentioned it to 2 of my closest neighbors. One of them looked at me and said, "Oh, so-and-so? She has that reputation. She's tried to get with my husband too, but with yours, she's persistent." Huh. It was at that moment that everything changed. Because until then, I thought it was just me. That she was only weird around us. But no, she did it to others too. The problem is she chose her targets carefully. The quiet, polite husbands who wouldn't cause a fuss, and the wives who tried to avoid arguments. The kind of environment where she could playfully provoke without being confronted. And even then, I was still trying to remain calm. I took a deep breath, talked to my husband again, explained how I felt. He listened, but always said he didn't want to be rude, that he didn't want to create a situation in the building. Until one night, returning from an event in the party room, the scene became all too clear. I was upstairs on the mezzanine when I saw my own neighbor leaning against his in the garage while they were talking. She laughed, touched his arm, tossed her hair to the side, and once again made that rehearsed flirtatious gesture. And him? He took a step back, embarrassed. But it was too late. I had seen it with my own eyes. I returned to the apartment with the certainty I needed. The doubt that had been gnawing at me now had a form, and what I didn't know yet is that someone else had seen it too, and that this story was about to stop being mine, to become the entire building's. The truth is, I never imagined she'd dig herself a hole. Until then, it had all been subtlety, a silent, dirty game, that kind of neighborly drama where the one who reports seems to be the crazy one. But what she didn't count on, and much less me, was that the building itself would betray her to everyone. It all happened on a random weekend. Saturday night, the apartment building's elevator malfunctioned. It was stuck between the 2nd and 3rd floors for about 10 minutes, and one of the residents, who is a substitute building manager, decided to review the cameras to understand what caused the failure. Nothing major. But when he went through the recordings, he saw something curious. It was her. The neighbor from 704, leaning against the elevator panel, alone with my husband. The scene was clearly visible. The elevator stopping, the 2 of them trapped inside for a few seconds, and her getting too close. Much closer than any neighbor should. She touched his arm, then slid her hand to his shoulder and blurted something out. Inaudible, but the gesture said it all. He, visibly uncomfortable, tries to pull away. She laughs. You take a step forward, and then you try to kiss him. Yes, on camera, in the elevator, inside the building. He backs away. He dodges. He says something quick and moves away to the corner of the elevator. And what does she do? Laughs again, as if nothing had happened. The resident who saw this was shocked. He said he reviewed it 3 times to be sure of what he'd seen. And after confirming, he did the unthinkable. He saved the video and sent it to the condominium group. Yes, in the group, with everyone. Guys, this is serious. The elevator camera caught a very strange situation between 2 residents. I'm not going to get involved, but I think some people need to explain themselves. The video came out soon after. The group exploded. There were dozens of messages in just a few minutes. People asked who she was. Others, who had already noticed her strange behavior, started commenting. And me? I was at home when my phone started beeping nonstop. When I opened it and saw it, my hand froze. Because even though I already knew what she was capable of, seeing it with my own eyes was something else. It wasn't just an assumption anymore. It was proof. The woman who pretended to be nice to me, who smiled in the hallways, who made innocent comments. Now she was there, exposed, trying to kiss my husband in an elevator, recorded by a camera she never dreamed anyone would check. And the best part? He didn't respond. And that, while it didn't erase the pain, gave me strength. I took a deep breath, waited for the hurricane to explode in the group, because it was a scandal, and just sent a simple message. Yes, this is the neighbor who's been trying to flirt with my husband for months. Now everyone can see what I saw alone. The group stopped. Some residents sent me private messages, apologizing for never taking me seriously. Others were simply outraged by her audacity. And her disappeared. Left the group, logged off social media, and spent days without leaving the apartment. Apparently, she didn't expect to be the one exposed. After the video, the atmosphere in the building changed. What had previously been just veiled discomfort, whispered gossip in hallways and furtive glances, became blatant. She was no longer the nice neighbor from 704. She was the woman who tried to kiss another woman's husband in the elevator and was caught on video. The reactions were immediate. Some people left a note on her door asking for more respect. Other neighbors, already suspicious of her behavior, began speaking out, and I realized that what I experienced wasn't an isolated incident. She had already made double entendres to the husband of a neighbor from 401, and a neighbor from 603 said she stopped going to the building's gym because she felt uncomfortable with the way she looked at her, as if she were always competing for male attention. In other words, she had been crossing boundaries for a long time. The craziest thing is that she tried to justify herself. She sent a message in the group, before leaving, saying that it wasn't a big deal, that they were joking, and that it was unfair to judge a video out of context. Out of context? Everyone saw her lean in, touch my husband, try to kiss him, and he clearly dodged. What other context could there be? From that point on, she practically disappeared. She stopped going to the common areas. She no longer went down to events, and, this I discovered later, she started using the service elevator to avoid running into people. As for my husband, well, he finally understood what I was trying to say. He apologized, genuinely. He said he felt embarrassed, that he couldn't imagine she would have the courage to do that to that extent. And honestly, this time I saw real regret. I saw the embarrassment, the shame of being part of such a ridiculous situation, and most importantly, he didn't try to justify it. He simply admitted it, apologized, and said that if I wanted to walk away, he would understand, but I didn't walk away. On the contrary, I stayed. And I asserted myself, because at that point, the shame was no longer mine. It wasn't his. It was hers. And I wasn't going to let someone else's mistake make me retreat from my own space, my home, my story. If anyone had to bow their head in that building, it wasn't me. From that moment on, I decided to stand firm. I regained my self-esteem. I began to look at myself with more love, and most importantly, I made it clear to everyone, including my husband, that I would never again tolerate feeling diminished by someone who doesn't respect the basics. Boundaries. This story could have ended in pain. It could have destroyed my marriage. It could have made me leave the building with my head down. But no. She ended with the truth laid bare, with the mask of a fake neighbor on the floor. And with me, stronger than ever, rebuilding trust from the one thing that never failed, my intuition.